Hello, Fiedelbogen here. To my fellow workers in the vineyard, worldwide, greetings. The talk today is part 2 of Notes Toward an Efficient Political Worldview. Part 1 was given in the video previous to this. To begin, feminism, which presumes to interpret all things, must be made to answer searching questions about itself as requital for its presumption. That is only proper when you consider the metaphysical nature of the case. Did feminism give birth to the rest of the universe, or did the rest of the universe give birth to feminism? If you're like me, you will see right away that the rest of the universe knocks feminism behind the 8 ball every time. Simply put, the rest of the universe supplies the formative principle which allows feminism to exist in the first place, and that makes feminism itself no better than a ripple on the river. There is an enormous world beyond feminism, a world enormously more ancient and deeply rooted than feminism, and feminism is enormously conceited if it presumes to explain everything about that world, or presumes to make its explanations morally binding upon that world. In the expanded view of things, feminism is precious little, and non-feminism is quite a lot. So if you are not a feminist, you have ample territory in which to wander without feeling constrained or in peril of being taken for somebody you are not. Nobody is entitled to any clarification of your standpoint beyond what the term non-feminist plainly intones. I mean that if you encounter somebody who desires to preach feminism at you, you have only to say, "I am not a feminist," and then walk away, having no ground to guess your precise objection to feminism, or even that you have any objection at all. They may not rightfully harm you further. Or, if they assail you with the talking point trick, stand quietly and let them say their say until their spring winds down. At that point you may, at your discretion, ask them if they have anything further to add. Then deliver something like the following speech. None of your remarks have the least bearing upon my reason for objecting to feminism. Since I have not stated my reason, you have no ground on which to know the nature of my objection. Furthermore, I am bound by no legal or moral principle to discharge my mind upon that point. So, I bid you a good day. You might go for the rest of your life and never call yourself anything but a non-feminist. This might be the only such self-descriptor you will ever need or care to use. I would like to impress upon you that there is no requirement to express your opposition in terms of a political movement, platform, organization, or anything at all of a positively assertive nature. To declare yourself non-feminist does no more than locate you within the universe exclusive of feminism, which is in no way a movement, but rather a container of movement or of predispositions to movement. Yet this brisk little maneuver is a radical decision of enormous political weight. As earlier stated, the non-feminist part of the universe is a region of existential space. The word previously used was sector, and that is a good choice because it implies cutting or partitioning, which is very much the sense of matters we would like to impart. So from henceforth, we shall refer to the universe exclusive of feminism as the non-feminist sector. The non-feminist sector contains all that is not feminism, and that is a lot. But prior to anything else, and as the name would suggest, it implies a simple primordial negation of feminism. Negation is the foundation. With respect to opposition of whatever form, negation is clearly the greater holon. If you declare yourself anti-feminist, you must, as a prerequisite, declare yourself non-feminist. But the reverse is not the case. You can be non-feminist without being anti-feminist, even as you can be non-Catholic without being anti-Catholic, non-Jewish without being anti-Semitic, or all manner of similar examples. Again, the non-feminist sector contains all that is not feminism, and that takes in a wealth of scenery. It includes the ridiculous, the sublime, the base, the exalted, the ignoble, the noble, the sum total of human nature and all which it encloses or is enclosed by. Please etch upon your memory that the term non-feminist sector is in no way a moral generalization. And these two sectors, the feminist and the non-feminist, are merely two opposed systems of human imperfection. One must prevail and the other must back off, because some imperfections are more desirable than others. Feminism, as we have explained many times, is perpetual revolution. This means that its being is identical with its being in motion. And feminist motion can be of only two sorts, advancing or retreating. Thus, for feminism to prosper, it must spread continually into the world beyond its perimeter, and in the process convert more and more of the non-feminist sector to a subaltern pattern of existence. That is how feminism aggressively aspires to universality. It doesn't just sit quietly and pronounce an abstract right to be the ruling paradigm. It undertakes actively to conquer and to assert the rights of conquest. And feminism can do none other than this, for it cannot sit still. If it were not in motion, feminism would literally not exist at all. Therefore, if it is barricaded along its line of advance, it can do one thing only: retreat and disintegrate within its own boundaries like an empire collapsing from internal decay. Such collapse, too, is, after all, a form of motion. Given that feminism aggressively aspires to universality, it cannot tolerate the non-feminist sector in the form of opposition. And whenever it encounters non-feminist opposition, it will brand this as reactionary or regressive sooner than look into alternative explanatory models. Such is feminist subjectivism. Equally, feminism cannot tolerate the non-feminist sector in the form of negation, for the very simple reason that it does not wish to be negated. Any piece of the world which stubbornly persists in going its own way is an open affront to any system, such as feminism, which desires to become the world, or which claims an unassailable prerogative to do so. Briefly then, any condition or thing which is distinctly not feminism is an irritation and a threat to feminism, because it serves as a reminder that feminism is in fact not the world. And that in turn raises the politically loaded question whether anything which is not feminism should be permitted to exist at all. The only plausibly feminist answer would be no, but few feminists would care to tackle this head on because honesty would be politically awkward and therefore not the best policy. Luckily for them, it is easy to sweep such conversations under the rug before they even get started. And so it comes to this, that the non-feminist sector commences with mere indifference to feminism and rises by degrees through the many shades of active opposition, even to the point of unmitigated vitriol. And yet, to the feminist worldview, there can be no difference among these many shades, for in the mind of any truly indoctrinated feminist, it is all the same whether we merely negate feminism by living blithely as if no such thing existed, or whether we campaign actively with the fixed intention of destroying it. Either possibility pours equally consequential sand into the machinery. In consequence, the universal, all-pervading feminist undertone says, "Who is not for me is against me." And this, I submit, is a fact of surpassing importance which ought to stand uppermost in our thoughts. You must understand that they will treat you as an adversary if you merely fail to hoist their flag. And yet it goes deeper, for you must also understand that by your mere existence, your simple presence in the world, nothing more, you pose an objective threat to their existence, to the very basis of their existence, to their entire enterprise, their entire way of life. And so, whatever your posture within the non-feminist sector, be it opposition or merely negation, they will rank you as an objective enemy within the feminist ideological paradigm. So finally, all opposition is negation, and all negation is opposition. Through the feminist eyeball, that is how the world appears. In their scheme of things, negation and opposition are the same animal, and whatever stands in the way of feminism's universal presumption, either actively or passively, counts as opposition. It's all the same. It's all one. In the beginning, before feminism existed, everybody was a non-feminist, and there was only negation. Those were innocent times. Then feminism appeared, making certain claims and demands, many of which appeared reasonable. After a while, the world reflowed in order to accommodate those claims and demands. Then feminism came back with new claims and demands, or more detailed editions of the old ones. This time, the claims and demands sounded a shade less reasonable, but still largely so. Again, the world reflowed, and this time in a more detailed way, but a shade more slowly. Over and over the cycle replayed itself, with such frequency and overlap that it resembled an asynchronous transformational blur along many fronts. In time, the endlessly updated claims and demands became boring and burdensome in their proliferation of nuance, seeming to drain the vital blood of life from the non-feminist sector in a way that could no longer be tolerated. Furthermore, the overt reasonableness of feminist demands was declining because the normative threshold of reasonableness itself was declining, thanks largely to those initial concessions which had watered down the standards defining that threshold, thereby lowering the bar and admitting further debasement of standards, followed by still more lowering of the bar, and so on. Such was the slow, steady encroachment of feminist power into the non-feminist sector. And as the feminist power base grew, so likewise feminism's power to roll over anything in its path, culturally, socially, legally, academically, politically, propagandistically, or what have you. However, as feminism's power multiplied, more and more of the non-feminist sector grew aware of that power and its range of influence, and in the course of so learning, the non-feminist sector grew more and more aware of itself as a thing not only other than feminism, but actively opposed to it. Feminism, as we have noted, does not distinguish negation from opposition. In the long run, therefore, feminism can do none other than to greet negation with the same hostility it would display toward opposition. I say in the long run, for there is plenty of non-feminist territory which the feminist reconfiguration effort hasn't quite looked into yet, meaning that life within such territory may go on for quite a while in the naive enjoyment of its proper narrative. But eventually, the feminist miasma will creep into such corners also, and when it does, predictable antagonisms will arise. For sooner or later, the feminist question, "What side are you on?" would demand imperiously to be answered, and some people, knowing a phony moral dilemma when they smell one, would flatly refuse to be lumbered with this. Above all other things, although likely in addition to such things, they would take offense at receiving an ultimatum. At such a critical moment, an anti-feminist is made. Yes, when feminism aggresses against non-feminism, certain segments of the non-feminist sector will naturally rise up and take the field against feminism, and in so doing become anti-feminist, by choice, by definition, and by practice. Negation turns into opposition when feminism rudely steps on the wrong people's toes. And to its significant misfortune, it does this quite a bit. Feminism has from the very beginning waged a campaign of steady escalating aggression against the non-feminist sector. It is only natural that the non-feminist sector would rise up against this. If such uprising is not yet evident, clear across the board, it will become so when feminist indoctrination reaches a critical mass where none may any longer live in blissful ignorance of feminism's true nature. On that day, it will be as if the feminist effort no longer had any room to exploit the unheroic, pacifistic nature of the average person, man or woman. This will occur because mere shallow acquiescence in feminist ideas will no longer satisfy the feminist demand for affirmation, or more precisely stated, feminist authority will no longer be humored or bought off by such acquiescence, and will require some manner of decisive interchange testable for authenticity. When matters come to such a stand, people in markedly greater numbers will put away their pacifism and wax heroic. When they are backed against that brick wall, they will make their decision, be it yea or nay, and then the hurly-burly will commence in earnest. In the interim, non-feminist sector solves the vexed problem of what to call ourselves. We may, if we choose, call ourselves non-feminist and nothing more. And yet, because the non-feminist sector is not a movement, but only a container of movement, it can be made to contain whatever the superabundance of our creativity and the exigency of our future needs might happen to require. A rising seafloor, destined to become a new Atlantis, but first showing only scattered islands which in time will grow and merge. The non-feminist sector is everything. In the feminist order up to the present, it has been nothing, but it must now assert itself and become something. Fiedelbogen. Out.